Hello friends, in this video we'll talk about .NET Core containerization. Before we look into how we can containerize a .NET Core application, let's see the evolution of containerization. If you look into the first deployment model which we had earlier, multiple applications were deployed on a physical server, and these applications were using a shared DLL or shared application components between these two applications. A common scenario which occurs in this kind of deployment model is that when a latest version of one of the application is deployed into the server, there is always a chance of one or more applications not responding back properly. The reason behind this is that the shared component of shared DLL which is shared between these applications is not compatible with one or more applications. In the next evolution deployment model, we saw hypervisor tools like VMware. Using VMware, we can easily spin up virtual machines. So virtual machines were spun up based on the OS requirements, like either it could be Windows or a Linux machine. And each application can be installed on individual virtual machines. This model works fine because virtual machine is an isolated environment. Only problem we may face is that if multiple applications start installing on the same VM, we'll again go back to the first evolution model which we saw. Some applications may not respond if multiple applications starts installing in the same VM. In the next evolution model, we saw the containerization. So what exactly is a containerization? Containerization is an isolated environment for running a program. So let's look what exactly in a container contains. In a container, we have got the application code, the individual components or DLL which is required for the application, and the application code itself. So container is actually an isolated environment where the application runs. When we talk about the OS coming into the container, it doesn't contain the full OS files required for what is there in the physical server. It actually contains a subset or a light version of OS which is going into the container. So container is actually a lightweight isolated environment. So to make a container, what exactly we require? We require something called container set tools. So one of the container set tools which is very popular in the industry is the Docker. So in this video, we'll be using the Docker container set to containerize an application. So if you see this model, because each container is an isolated environment, even we can take off the virtual machine 2 from this deployment environment. In one virtual machine itself, we can install multiple applications because it's a container. It's an isolated individual model running on the VM. So this is exactly what I'm going to cover in the hands-on. In the hands-on, I will spin up a virtual machine in Microsoft Azure portal platform, and I'll be using a Nginx reverse proxy server. Nginx is a web server or reverse proxy which is very popular, and I'll be using the same one. And the application code will be containerized using the container set tool which is the Docker. So when the user hits the API or our application program, it goes and hits in the VM and it goes into the Nginx server, and the request will be forwarded to the Docker image which is running on the VM machine. So for the hands-on, I'll be using a simple web API project for the demo purpose. So let's move to hands-on. First step, we need to spin up a virtual machine. I have logged into my Azure portal. If you don't have a Azure portal account, create one. It's free. click virtual machine, add virtual machine. I already have a resource group. Resource group is something like a grouping of resources which is coming under one common area. I already have a resource group. I'm using the same one. I'm putting a name for the virtual machine. You can select the region which you want to put up your VM. I'm spinning up a Linux server, so I selected Ubuntu server. Size you can select. I'm selecting a basic one, B15, which cost me around like 700 rupees per month. So this is server credentials which we require to log into the server once you have created the virtual machine. You have to select the ports which you require for your VM to respond. I'm selecting two. I'm selecting HTTP 80 and SSH 22. HTTP is for web request and the other one is for sharing the files and all. So two I have selected. Let's move to next step. You can keep the defaults as such. There is no change required here. You can review the final screen, and if you're good, you can create the VM. So you are creating a VM under the .NET Apps resource group, Linux server with Ubuntu server, and you're using B15 server for the time being. Click create. So it's in the process of deploying the server. It takes a while to deploy the VM for you. The VM is ready for use. You can go to home. You can see the VM machine you created just now. You can click on that one. On the right hand side, you can see the public IP allocated to your VM. Just to the IP, you have got an icon to copy the IP address. You can copy the IP. What we are going to do, we are going to log into the VM machine and see everything is running fine there. For that one, you require a software called Putty. You can download it from internet. It's absolutely free. So click on Putty. You have to input the IP address. We just copied the IP address. You're copying there. Click open. It asks for the login. This is the same login name which you have given while you created the VM in Azure portal. If all looks good, you'll be able to log into the server. You're successfully logged into the server, so everything looks good. As a next step, we'll install the Docker software for containerization of your application. Also, I'll install the Nginx web server as a reverse proxy in the server. So for this, we need to issue some commands. It's a default commands which you issue for Linux servers to install the Docker and Nginx server. So I'll be applying the same thing. I'll be posting these commands in my video under the comments, so you can take it from there, or you can log into my Git URL and you can take the commands from there. So let's go ahead. The first command is basically to get the config from the software locations. It actually updates all the config to fetch the software. is done. We'll issue the second command. If it asks for to continue, just click yes and go ahead. Second command is done. Let's go with the third one. It's done. Let's go ahead with the fourth one. The last one is the one which we install the Docker to the VM. Takes a little while to install the Docker. It's almost done. We are done. To check whether Docker is installed, you can issue a command called sudo docker images. That lists you all the images what you have in the virtual machine. We don't have any images as of now, so that's why it's giving a blank list of Docker images. So we are good with the Docker. Next up, we'll install the Nginx server. Again, we need to issue a couple of commands. So this one will install the Nginx server for you. So installation of the server is done. Let's check it out whether it's running fine or not. We have installed Docker and Nginx server on the VM machine. To check whether the Nginx reverse proxy web server is running, you come back to the Azure portal. Again, copy back the IP address, open one more tab, you put the IP address there. So we're getting the response from the Nginx server. So we are good with the installation of virtual machine, installation of Nginx server. For demo purpose, I have created a small web API in .NET Core 3.1 using Visual Studio 2019. It has got only one controller, which has got the default model for weather forecast, and a controller API for weather forecast, which gives you a list of weather forecast for particular areas. So if you run this one, it will be giving a get request to the API and return back the results. The web API has given the results back. It gives you the date, temperature, and summary by default. Okay. So it's a normal web API created. The only thing different I have added is in the startup.cs. In the startup.cs, I have created an option called forward header options. If you remember, I told I'll be using a reverse proxy, which is called the Nginx server. To work on the Nginx server and send the request from the Nginx to our internal custom server which is running, we need this option to be enabled. So that's why I put this option here, services.configuration forward header options. And please do add in the configure also app to use the forward header options. So this is the only thing I have additionally what I have added over the default web API project. Next up, we will publish this project and keep it ready in the local itself. So we have successfully published the project inside the project code. If you want to check it out. docker.webapp.exe. So it's running from the published folder. It's running in the 5000 localhost. All looks good. The response is giving back. Let's move to containerization of this web API. Next up, we'll move the program application to the virtual machine. For that one, we require another software we called as WinSCP. This is a freeware you can download from the internet. This will help to connect to your VM machine, and then you can transfer the files from your local to virtual machine. So again, we need to get the IP address from here of your VM. Go here, put your username and process. So on the left hand side you can see the local folder in your machine, and the right hand side is the Linux server. So first thing, you can create a publish folder here. So for that one, you can again go back to your server window where you're connected using PuTTY. You can issue a command called mkdir publish folder. So you can see the publish folder created once you refresh that one. So this is a folder where we are going to publish a code from the local to here. So you just copy all the files, selected all the files which you want to upload. So the files are in the publish folder which you published inside your local machine. You just click upload. It will show you the path where it's getting published to the virtual machine. You create the publish folder, it will go here. So all the files are transferred to your Linux machine. If you want to again check in from this machine, you can definitely do. You can see the publish folder inside this one. ls is the command which will list you all the files there. So all the files are copied to the virtual machines under the publish folder. Before we move to the final step of containerization of the application, we need a small change in the Nginx configuration file. So if you look into the root directory need to go to folder called etc. Under etc we'll be having a folder called Nginx server. Under the Nginx server we have got a folder called sites enabled. So there's a folder called default. If you want to see that folder, if you want to see the file, it looks like this one. It's a configuration file for the server configuration for the Nginx server. As I told you in the previous step, Nginx server we installed as a reverse proxy. So when the user hits the server, it will go to first the Nginx web server, and from there we need to route to our .NET Core web server, which is listening in the server 5000. So we need to change this configuration from this one to a different one. So if you go to a web hosting site like Docker Microsoft site, it gives you the configuration what is required for this one. I'll post this URL in the video. So this configuration what is required for in the Nginx default site. So you can copy this one and you come back here, the file called default. You can click that one, you can click edit, it will open the file. You can completely delete this one and paste this one, and you can put save. You will get a permission denied from the server, so we need to enable the access for this one. So what you have to do, we have to go back to your Linux server machine. We are in the root folder. We need to go to etc cd Nginx cd sites. So you have to change the permission of the default file. For that one, you need to issue a command. You go csmod 667 default is the file name. Once you enable the file, the permission for this file, you can come back. Just copying once again. So old one, deleting, control V. Saving right now. Still dark. You can close that one. After giving permission, it will be saving. So now we have got the latest configuration what we picked from the Microsoft site for the Nginx server. So we have done the configuration for the Nginx server. Now if you send a request to the Nginx server, it will route back to the proxy. You can see the proxy might pass to the HTTP localhost 5000. So this will be the server under which the ASP.NET Core project will be running in the VM machine. So that's why we have put this configuration here in the Nginx server. So we are good. Let's move to the next step of Dockerization. We are back in the published folder. To create the containerization, we require a file which we call as a Docker file. It's similar to the manifest file or some other configuration files for the Docker file to create. So I place that file inside the published folder in the virtual machine. Let's have a look. It's a pretty small configuration file. The first line it says that use the .NET Core 3.1 SDK for creating the containerization image. It creates a working directory called app. It copies all the file to the particular folder, and it will be listening in the 5000 port, expose the 5000 port, and the entry point for the image will be docker file webapp.dll. That is the DLL file which we have created, webapp. That's the entry file for this one. So it's a small file which we use for the Docker file creation. Close it. Now let's come back to the virtual machine, back to our published folder. We created the published folder in the Linux server folder. Let's check once again. So we have got all the files. We have all the files including the Docker file which I shown in the previous step. So let's trigger this command to create the Docker file. So it's a Docker build file. So what it does is, I think it creates a Docker image using the Docker file which I showed in the previous step, and it will be creating in the name, the image will be named as .NET app, which is I given as the last one as the parameter. So it starts pulling all the files what is required for the containerization. As a first step, it pulls the Microsoft SDK 3.1 .NET Core for as part of the container. As I told you, it's a container, so all the files required for this application will be inside this image. It takes a little while to create the image, so let's wait and see. After this step, we'll be creating the end of this step. We'll be getting an image of the application. Step 2, it has created a working directory. As you can see, it's copying all the files what is required. It's exposed the 5000 URL and we are good to go. If you want to see the image is created or not, you can issue a command called it's called images, Docker images. So you can see we have got the .NET app which we created as part of the previous step. So the image is ready. The next one is to run this Docker. Now we have created all the images. We need to run this image. We'll issue the next command. So it's sudo docker run command. What we are saying, run this image which is named as .NET app under the port 5000. So it started running. If you want to see, Docker is running. Just give sudo docker ps. It will display which all images are currently running. So we have got this image running .NET app. So now we have containerized this application and we have started this application using sudo docker ps command. We'll come back to our Nginx, this one. So this is the Nginx IP address we have created and it is running the Nginx server. Now we have to call the API. Previously we got an error like the weather forecast was not giving the response back. The reason why we changed the configuration file of the Nginx server previously and we didn't restart the server. So the command for restarting the server is sudo service nginx restart. So you need to come back to the server, issue the command. Once you issue the command, the Nginx server will be restarting and you can come back to your web and you can issue weather forecast. So now you are getting the response back from the VM server using the Dockerization. So our Docker container is running here. Docker images respond back with the response through the Nginx server. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching the video. If you like the video, put your comments and subscribe. Thank you.